There's a particular kind of betrayal that doesn't look like betrayal. At first, it looks like concern. It looks like someone who loves you finally paying attention. The danger that comes at you sideways, wrapped in good intentions and a charging cable, is the kind you don't see until you're already inside it. I've thought about that a lot in the months since everything came apart. What I keep coming back to is this. I was the careful one. 32 years with the Postal Service, the last 11 as a distribution supervisor. I know how systems work. I know how things get redirected. I know how something can move through a channel it was never supposed to be in, and nobody notices until it's already gone. I should have seen it. My name is Elliot. I'm 65 years old. I live in East Memphis in the same house on Whitehaven Drive that my wife and I bought the year our daughter started second grade. My wife passed 3 years ago now. A stroke, fast and without warning, the way strokes are. The doctors said she likely never felt it coming. I've held on to that, some mornings more than others. The house is too large for one person, I know that. I keep the back bedroom shut because it still smells faintly like her hand lotion if I open it on a warm day. I eat at the kitchen island most nights, standing. The dining table seats 6. I don't see the point in sitting at it alone. I retired at 63. My CSRS pension covers the utilities, the groceries, everything that used to need 2 incomes, and it does it comfortably. The house is paid off. I built savings steadily for 30 years because I watched my father work his whole life and die with nothing, and I told myself early that would not be me. I'm not wealthy. But I built something real. I am careful with it, the way you're careful with something that took your whole working life to assemble. My daughter lives out in Cordova with her husband and their 2 boys. We talk most Sundays. She worries about me the way children worry about a parent they can't quite picture being alone, and I let her. It keeps us close and it doesn't cost me anything. My nephew is my sister's only son. He's 39. He works in commercial insurance, the kind where you spend your days convincing people that catastrophe is always one bad quarter away. He's good at it. He has one of those faces that looks trustworthy because it's always a little too composed, too measured, like he's already run the numbers on the conversation before it starts. He visits every few weeks. He takes me to lunch, calls to check in, texts me articles about sleep and blood pressure. I thought it was thoughtfulness. I told my sister once that her son had turned out well. I believed it when I said it. My birthday is in October. This past October, he showed up on a Saturday morning with coffee from the Starbucks on Poplar and a box under his arm that he carried the way you carry something you're proud of. He said he and my daughter had gone in together on it. She couldn't make it, he said. The boys had soccer. Inside the box was a tablet. One of the newer ones, slim, fast, came with a leather cover that looked expensive. He'd already set it up. My name on the lock screen, my photo as the wallpaper, a picture of me and my wife from our trip to Savannah 12 years ago. He'd gotten it from my daughter, he said. He knew which photo I'd want to see. He spent most of that afternoon at my kitchen table setting things up. He connected the tablet to my home network. He installed a video calling app so I could see my grandkids on Sundays. He showed me how to check the weather, how to play the word puzzle games my daughter had mentioned I liked, and then he opened a financial management application, one I hadn't heard of, and he explained it would pull all my accounts together in one dashboard. Checking, savings, pension deposit confirmations, all of it in one clean screen. He said he'd set up alerts so I'd know if anything looked unusual. He said my daughter would also have view access, just so someone else could keep an eye on things. Just in case, he said. Backup. That was the word he used, like I was a file that needed protecting. I asked him if that was necessary. He said he wasn't trying to intrude. He just wanted me to have support. I thanked him. He hugged me on the way out and told me to call if I needed anything. I used the tablet the way he showed me for 6 weeks. Video calls. Word games. Weather. I'd look at the financial dashboard and feel vaguely modern. I was genuinely pleased with it. Percy was the one who changed that. Percy Howell and I go back to our late 20s. He spent 19 years with a regional bank before moving into fraud investigations, and retiring 4 years before I did. We get breakfast most Saturdays at a place on Getwell Road, where the booths are older than either of us, and the grits are made right. He's 68, and if his knees give him trouble, he doesn't talk about it much. His mind doesn't give him any trouble at all. I was showing him the tablet one morning. The word game mostly, and then the financial dashboard. He asked to see the app. I handed the tablet across the table. He sat with it for almost 3 minutes without saying anything. Percy doesn't go quiet without a reason. His face didn't change exactly. It settled the way a face settles when something has been confirmed that you were hoping wouldn't be. He asked me who had entered the account credentials. I told him my nephew had done all the setup. He asked if I'd ever logged in myself, ever created my own username and password through the app. I said no. My nephew had it saved. It opened automatically. Percy asked me whether I knew what permission level the linked account was configured under. I said I didn't know what that meant. He set the tablet face down on the table between us. Carefully, the way you set something down when you need your hands to stay still. He said, "Elliot, this app isn't read-only. Whoever configured it has full administrative access to every account linked here. That includes the ability to initiate transfers." I put my coffee cup down. He said, "I need to check something else." He went into the system settings, moving through menus I'd never opened. He stopped on one screen and went quiet again, a different kind of quiet. He said, "Your voice assistant is linked to a cloud storage account that isn't yours. It's not your email address." He read me the address. I didn't recognize it. He said, "Every conversation you have near this device is being uploaded to that account." The diner was loud around us, and I heard all of it and none of it at the same time. The coffee cups, the other tables, someone's grandchild laughing 2 booths over. I heard all of it and sat very still. I said, "My nephew configured the whole thing." Percy nodded once. He wasn't surprised. That was the worst part. I drove home that afternoon with the tablet on the passenger seat in its leather cover. The city was the same. Poplar Avenue, the old church at the curve, the park where I used to take my daughter on weekends. Everything looked exactly the way it always had and felt tilted at the same time, like a room you know well seen through someone else's eyes. I didn't call my nephew. That was the hardest thing I'd done in a long time, not picking up the phone and asking him directly. I've always handled things directly, but Percy had looked at me across the table with an expression I recognized from years of hearing him talk about his fraud investigation work, and he'd said, "Don't move yet. Don't change anything. Let me think." My daughter called that evening, and I talked to her for 30 minutes about the grandkids and a new restaurant she'd tried in Germantown, and whether I'd had the furnace checked before the cold came. My voice was even the whole time. I don't know how. 2 days later, I went to find a phone charger in the guest room, the room my nephew uses when he stays over, which he'd done 3 times in the past year. The charger wasn't there, but in the small desk drawer, the one with the scratched brass handles that used to be in my wife's sewing room, I found a folder, tan cardstock, my name written on the tab in my nephew's handwriting. I stood there for a moment. The afternoon light in that room comes from the west, and it was low and amber, the way October light is in Memphis. I opened the folder. There were printed documents inside, templates, some filled in. The words assembled themselves slowly, because I didn't want to read them fast. Power of attorney, durable, financial decisions. An incapacity assessment checklist, with items checked off in blue pen. A petition template, Shelby County Probate Court, guardianship. His name typed in as proposed guardian. And underneath those, on yellow legal pad paper in his handwriting, A list of observations. Uncle missed our lunch on the 14th, showed up at the old location on Perkins, called me confused, asking where I was. Uncle asked twice about his prescription refill date. Same medication, 2 separate weeks. Uncle referred to Aunt during conversation as though she were home waiting for him. That last one, I had to read it twice. The prescription refill I'd asked about twice was during a period when the pharmacy had changed their system and shifted all refill dates without notice. I had the paperwork. The lunch, I remembered clearly. I'd gone to the location we'd used for years before he'd switched us to a new place a few months earlier, and I'd simply forgotten he'd said new spot. I texted him when I realized. We'd laughed about it. He'd written it down like a symptom. And my wife, I mentioned her name the way you mentioned the name of someone who was your whole life for 31 years. That's not confusion. That is grief. He had written it down like evidence. Below the yellow pages, a printout, my home address. The Zillow estimate on the property, $387,000. My CSRS pension monthly amount in his handwriting next to it. My savings balance. A life insurance policy number I recognized as mine. I put everything back in the exact order I'd found it. Closed the drawer, went to the kitchen and stood at the sink with the cold water running over my hands until my breathing came back down to something steady. Then I called Percy. He listened all the way through without saying a word. When I finished, he let one long breath out through his nose and said, "This is a guardianship play, Elliot." The app was step 1. Surveillance. The folder is step 2. He's manufacturing a paper trail to establish diminished capacity. Step 3 is the filing. I said I understood. He said, "You need an attorney before you need anything else, and you need to keep using that tablet like you don't know anything is wrong." That instruction was the loneliest thing I'd been asked to do in years. Every time I spoke near the tablet after that, I was performing. I said out loud in the living room that I'd nearly forgotten my blood pressure medication that morning. I said near the kitchen counter that keeping track of the calendar was getting harder. I said once quietly that I missed having someone to talk things over with before making decisions. Each time I said something like that, I drove to Percy's and we wrote it down. The time, the words, the context. Percy said handwritten documentation with consistent dates still carries weight in a courtroom. He said, "People your age get dismissed in those rooms, Elliot. Paper keeps you standing." My nephew started texting more. Attentive, warm. He stopped by with dinner on a Wednesday without being asked and sat with me while I ate, watching the way someone watches when they're cataloging what they see. He asked how I was sleeping. Asked whether the tablet was helping me stay organized. Asked, very softly, whether I'd thought about the future and whether having some help managing things might make life easier going forward. His voice was careful and kind, and I sat with it and nodded and let the smallest edge of uncertainty cross my face. Not much. Enough. My attorney, who handled my wife's estate and has known our family for 11 years, met me at his office on Union Avenue before it opened one morning. I brought the folder. He read every page without speaking. When he set it down, he said, "This is a conservatorship attempt. He hasn't filed yet, which means you have time. But those templates are a real starting point, Elliot. Someone with legal knowledge helped him build these. He told me to change nothing outwardly, sign nothing, document everything. He said he'd coordinate with law enforcement about the device." The call from a detective at the Shelby County Sheriff's Office came 4 days later. She had spoken with my attorney and reviewed what Percy had documented about the tablet setup. She confirmed that the financial application had been configured with full administrative access, not read-only, and that the voice assistant had been linked to an external cloud account registered to my nephew's professional email address. She said 6 weeks of audio from inside my home had been uploaded and was recoverable. She said her unit was reviewing it. She told me to act normal. Those were her exact words. She said she'd be in touch. I sat in my truck in the driveway after that call and watched the Bradford pear trees on my block doing what they do in October, turning color all at once in the low light. I thought about my nephew at my kitchen table that Saturday, typing in credentials, explaining what backup meant. I thought about how long he must have been planning this before he ever showed up with the box. How many lunches and phone calls and check-in texts I'd taken as affection while he was measuring the distance between where I was and where he needed me to appear to be. Over the following week, my daughter called twice and asked whether I'd thought more about the future, about whether managing everything alone was getting to be a lot. She was gentle. She was worried. He had given her a picture of me that wasn't accurate, and she had believed it because she loves me and had no reason not to trust her cousin. He had walked right through her. The meeting was set for a Thursday at my attorney's office downtown. It was framed to my nephew as a family estate planning discussion routine, just getting everyone on the same page. He accepted without much hesitation. That told me something about how certain he was of where he stood. I want to tell you what it felt like to walk into that conference room knowing what was coming. My hands were still. I'd expected them to shake. I'd expected the anger to come up the way it sometimes does, tightening in the jaw, pressing behind the eyes. But I walked in and felt quiet, the way I used to feel on the distribution center floor, when a problem had been identified, and the solution was laid out, and there was nothing left but to execute it. Just the work to do. My nephew came in sharp, jacket, leather portfolio under his arm, that composed and measured face. He shook hands with my attorney. He looked at me with something I can only describe as quiet confidence. He thought he knew how the morning was going to go. The detective was introduced as part of an ongoing consultation related to financial protection concerns. My nephew's hand tightened on the portfolio when she said the word investigation. His expression shifted just slightly, the way a light dims before it steadies. My attorney placed a summary on the table. He said the tablet had been examined by a certified digital forensics specialist and by the department's financial crimes unit. He said the financial application had been configured to grant full transactional access to a secondary user whose credentials matched my nephew's professional email. He said the voice assistant had been linked to an external cloud storage account under the same email address, and that audio recorded inside my home had been continuously uploaded for 6 weeks. My nephew said that wasn't accurate, said he'd set it up to help, said the access was only in case of emergency. My attorney slid the forensics certification forward, then the department's written findings. Then he said, "We also have the folder." Photocopied pages on the table. The yellow legal pad notes on top. The note about my wife visible at the top of the stack. My nephew said those were notes written from genuine concern. That he'd been watching me struggle for over a year. That it was difficult, and he was trying to do right by the family. The detective leaned forward. She said he had been building documentation to support a guardianship petition that had already been templated through a third-party legal preparation service. She named the service. She named the date the account was created. She had done her work thoroughly. His composure held for another minute. He was good at it. He talked about love and family and how hard it is to watch someone you care about stop being who they were. His voice stayed level. But his eyes went to my daughter, and my daughter's face was not giving him what he needed. She was looking at the table, at the yellow legal pad, at the line about her mother. She said his name, just once, quietly, just his name. He kept going. He said I was a proud man who had never learned to ask for help, that this was a misunderstanding, that her mother would have wanted the family to take care of me. I looked at him when he said that. I didn't raise my voice. I just looked at him and waited. He stopped talking. I said, "She spent 31 years building everything we had alongside me. She knew exactly what she was building it for, And I can tell you with certainty that she would have said the same thing to you that I'm saying now." He sat back. The detective told him the Financial Crimes Unit would be contacting his attorney regarding the unauthorized account configuration and the misrepresentation made to a financial institution during the credential setup process. She said it without anger, without any performance of satisfaction. She was just telling him what was true. He left. He didn't look at me on his way out. My daughter stayed. She sat across from me at that conference table and didn't speak for a while. When she did, she said she hadn't known about the guardianship documents, hadn't known about the financial access. She said her cousin had told her I'd been declining, that I'd missed appointments and forgotten things, that I'd talked about her mother like she was still around. She said she'd been scared. She said, "Dad, I was so scared of watching you slip away the same way we lost her." He had known exactly which door to walk through with her. He had known which fear to use. I told her I believed her. I still do. But belief and trust are not the same thing, and trust is rebuilt in small increments over time, not all at once. We're still working on that. Some things take longer than you want them to. Within a week of the meeting, I worked with my attorney to update every estate document I had. I named an independent professional fiduciary as trustee, no family member. I changed every account credential, revoked all third-party application access, and removed the tablet from my home. I put protections in place that I should have established years ago, the kind that nobody tells you that you need until after you've already needed them. Percy came over for dinner not long after. We sat at the dining room table, which felt right for the first time in a long time. Over coffee, he said something I've been sitting with since. He said, "You know what actually cost you most in all of this?" I asked what. He said, "It wasn't anything he tried to take. It was what you had to pretend to be in order to stop him." He's right. There is a cost to performing your own diminishment even strategically, even when it works. It doesn't leave a mark anyone else can see. But in the quiet moments walking past the guest room, thinking about standing there in that low October light reading those yellow pages, you feel it. The tablet is gone. I don't use financial aggregation applications. I know that sounds extreme to people who manage their entire financial lives on a phone, and maybe it is, but I spent 32 years understanding how things get redirected. How something meant to travel one channel ends up moving through another without anyone noticing until it's already arrived somewhere it shouldn't be. The simplest way to prevent that is to not build the channel in the first place. Here's what I'll leave you with, because I think you've stayed with me long enough to deserve the plain version. At 65, I thought the years of being a target were behind me. I'd done what you're supposed to do. Paid off the house, built the savings, retired on solid footing. I thought those things made me secure. What I didn't understand is that those same things make you a destination for someone who's been quietly reading the map. The people who want what you've built don't always come at you from outside. Sometimes they come through the people you've trusted longest. Sometimes they come on your birthday carrying a gift. Sometimes they come as concern and family dinners and gentle questions about the future. If someone in your life is paying unusual attention to your accounts, your routines, your memory, your state of mind, not in the way people who love you pay attention, but in the way someone assembles a file, trust that feeling. Write it down. Get a second opinion from someone outside the situation. Talk to an attorney before you change anything or sign anything. And if someone offers to set up a device or an application for you that touches your financial accounts, ask them plainly what access they're keeping for themselves afterward. A person who loves you will not be offended by the question. Your home, your savings, your name, your right to make your own decisions, those things are worth the effort of protecting. Don't let anyone persuade you that protecting them means you don't trust your family. Real family doesn't need a back door into your accounts. Real love doesn't need to record your living room while you sleep. Thank you for being here with me. If something in this story felt close to home, please don't hold it quietly. Share it with someone who might need to hear it before they need to act on it. These things survive in silence. They do not survive in the light. You're with Voices of Uncle Russell. Stay careful. Stay steady. Take care of yourselves out there.